Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Clark and Addison, Born into the Ivy. It has been a minute. I apologize that it's been so long, but it's been a little bit of a breather. And I'm just here to talk. The winter meetings start tomorrow. Hasn't been a ton that's happened for the Cubs in the past almost 2 weeks since I've done an episode, but that's all right because I think that things are about to get busy. Lots of rumors about some players. Last episode, we talked specifically about trades and who I thought the Cubs could and should go after and why. Um, One of the targets that have been mentioned since then in rumors is Pablo Lopez. I'm not going to go too into him because we went a little more in depth in him last week or last episode. And so, but he is one of those possible targets. Evan Phillips is also one. Tatsuya Amai, Michael King, Alex Bregman is the only hitter that's been bandied about right now. Zach Gallen and Ranger Suarez. So we'll break those down a little bit more here. But first, some notes. Since we last talked, the Cubs were in on Dylan Cease, but they bowed out after, reportedly, it got over $200 million. Dylan Cease ended up signing with the Blue Jays for 7 years at $210 million, but with deferred money, I think it ends up like at $188 for right now. I don't know. I mean, I like the deal. I would have been good, like really happy with the deal. But I kind of get why they didn't go after him. I'm not at all surprised why they didn't get him. They did go after him, but I'm not surprised that they didn't get him at that price. I mean, I would have been happy with it. I wouldn't have been discouraged. I would have been actually very encouraged. But I'm in no way, shape, or form surprised that this big market team, who continues to act like a mid-market team, didn't go over $200 million. Phil Maton, the terms have been disclosed at 2 years, $14.5 million with a club option. Love that deal. Absolutely love the deal. Loved it before. Love it even more now that I know the terms. He, I think, will be very much worth all that. The Mets have signed Devin Williams, and that was disappointing to me because I was really hoping the Cubs might go after him. But when I found out the terms, I'm kind of glad. He may be worth it, but 3 years of $50 million plus incentives. He's guaranteed $50 million over the next 3 years. I think we can probably do better, money-wise, and like per dollar. You know what I mean? For the bullpen. And bullpen guys, folks, we got to understand, they are so volatile. And part of it is if you just mess up once, you don't get the sheer volume that starters do for it to counterbalance. And that's just the facts. So then we look at things and we're like, oh man, they sucked. They didn't really suck, but they struggled at times. And so, and if you have one bad year, like everybody wants to get rid of you right away, myself included. But that's why I don't like guaranteeing that much money to a bullpen guy, folks. It just doesn't make sense. Minor league free agent Scott Kingery was signed, a blip on the radar, but when he was solid for the Phillies, but that was back in 19. That was last year that he was solid. He was an average player. Now, I'll take him on the bench as an average player all day long. All day. Because we could really use an average player on the bench. I don't know that anything will come of this. He hasn't played well since then. So, it's probably not going to amount to much, but still something to note real quick. Matthew Boyd, Jamison Williams, and Shota Imanaga, I believe, are all confirmed right now to be pitching in the World Baseball Classic. That's exciting, but nervous as well. So, pretty cool that we have so many guys as of right now who will be pitching in the World Baseball Classic for their respective countries. Matthew Boyd for Team USA. But still a little worrisome because you don't have him under, your thumb during all that, during spring training and stuff for that. So the Cubs currently are reportedly, according to Bruce Levine, have about 50 to 60 million more to spend for the 26 roster, according to Levine and his sources. The Cubs currently sit around 196.5 million at to the first luxury cap threshold, which is 244 million, which leaves about 47.5. So I think the 50 to 60 is probably a bit high, but it would be really cool if it's accurate and that they're willing, at least maybe for the right set of circumstances, to go over that threshold for the 26th season. I'm not saying that they have to do it all the time. I'm just saying for the 26th season, if they're willing to go over the threshold, not knowing what's happening in 27, I like that. I like the mentality, and I don't disagree that it should be for the right circumstances. If you can get a guy like Amai and add another solid bat, I love that idea. And get the right bullpen pieces. So, I said we were going to talk about some of these other targets. Alex Bregman, I talked about him last year. I wasn't impressed. I'm not impressed. I get that he's a solid player. I get that he is 31, but he'll be 32 for the 26th season. It's not this season that I'm worried about. It's following. 33, age 33, 34, 35, and so on. If we could sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal at high AAV, I'd probably be a little more on board. I just think if we're going to sign this guy, and folks, he is, I'm sorry, I got out of the page. Alex Bregman's predicted to get at minimum $135 million over 5 years and at maximum $160 million at 5 years. If we're going to put that much money towards it, why the hell wouldn't we add $50 million to the high end of that and add another year or two and go get Bo Bichette? He's going to be better for longer. He is better now, in my opinion. I think would be willing to play third base in the right situation. Neither of them would make us suffer defensively. They're both very solid defensive players and would not hurt the team overall defensively, but would both add more to the offense. I don't disagree with that. I went and looked. Matt Shaw, I do think, is going to take a step up. And I'm not saying get rid of Matt Shaw. I think Matt Shaw could play super utility like Ben Zobrist did a couple years ago, and or play right field. I don't think that that's a crazy idea. Bregman had a nice bounce back year from the previous year, kinda. As far as walk rate, it went up quite a bit again. His strikeout rate did go up a little bit, but it's still only 14.1%. Like, that's pretty solid. But he only played 114 games. I think the older he gets, the more, for lack of a better word to use, fragile he's going to become. He had a productive season. I don't dispute that. But I don't think that he had the season to spend $160 million on. And I don't think that the last couple of years have been worth that. His best year by far was 2019, and he's really not even come close to that again. He just hasn't. And anybody who wants to argue with me about that is crazy, in my opinion. Like, his WRC plus in 19 was 167. The highest he's had since then is 137, and that was in 2022. He had a 125 WRC plus this past year. His OPS was 821 this past year. The highest he's had since 2019, when it was 1,015. The season before was 926. I'm the 926, like the 1015. It'd be crazy to expect something like that. I don't disagree, and he plays good to great defense. I agree with all that too. I just think it's crazy to go after this guy going into his age 32 season and not Bo Bichette. I don't understand it. Bear with me because I didn't have this ready, but I'm going to go into some of those Bo Bichette numbers now and tell you why. Like, I just think that this is for $50 million more over the course of 7 years. So not $50 million a year. Come on. Doesn't it make more sense to get a guy who is now 27 but will be 28 next year? So he's 4 years younger. And we're talking about just a year or two longer. Has more upside. He doesn't walk as much. I don't disagree. And he strikes out maybe a bit more. This past year he didn't, but overall in his career he has. But he has a better contact rate. He's better defensively, in my opinion, especially at third base. And he hits for a much better average. His OPS was 840 this past year. He's never that's his highest for his OPS. His WRC plus was 134. His highest. I just think that he's the better player for the fit with the team. And he's going to be viable for longer. I don't think he's on the downward spiral. He's still going maybe upward even. He's hitting his prime. He's not starting to come out of his prime. I just think this is the much better idea if we're going to spend big on a free agent player. Makes sense to me. Leave some comments. Tell me why you think I'm wrong. Tell me why you think I'm crazy. Evan Phillips, this is a guy that might be able to come back and impact this year. But if we're signing, or anybody signs this guy, he just had Tommy John surgery in June. He didn't pitch a ton this year at his age 30 season, but he has been excellent since 2022. And I mean excellent. And really, you could argue that he's been pretty good since 21. So, in 2022, for the Dodgers, he had a 1.14 ERA in 63 innings. His FIP was 1.94. In 23, a 2.05. In 24, a 3.62. Those are ERAs, not FIPs. So even the 3.62 is not great, but it's certainly not bad. And you tell me we couldn't use that guy in our bullpen? Hopefully, maybe, best case scenario, near the end of the season next year. But definitely, possibly, for 27 if there's a season. I think there'll be a season in 27. I just don't know how much. But this is a guy that gives us high upside, especially if we can sign him for relatively cheap this year with a higher value for 27. I just think it's worth a big gamble. I don't know what it would take, but I love the idea. The starters that I talked about, Amai, King, Gallen, and Suarez. These are the labels. High end for Amai, $160 million, plus the $22 million posting fee. I think it's probably going to take a little more. I think we're maybe looking at 210, 215. That includes the posting fee, in my opinion, for maybe 6 to 7 years. And the low end that he's predicted is 5 years at $80 million plus the posting fee. That's just stupid. He's going to get way more than that. But that's the low end. Michael King prediction is pretty close, like similar AAVs. $57 million to $54 million for 3 years. And then the high end was 4 years at $80 million. I get it, but I don't. There's just something about it that I don't like. And we'll go over the stats here in a minute. I like the idea. I think he's got high upside, but I think his ceiling is also lower. than some of the other three. And so that scares me a bit. Zach Gallen, who I don't think this makes any sense at all, but I see value in it. The low end was 2 years, 45. The high end, 4 years, 80 million. So pretty similar to King. I think King has more upside. Gallen has a better ceiling. And then Ranger Suarez, and this one is very, very intriguing to me. The high end, 115 million at 5 years. Actually, it was 110 million at 4 years. And the low end was 4 years at 92 million. Ranger Suarez is incredibly intriguing to me because of his ground ball rate. He doesn't strike out a bunch. I want all these other guys have a bit better fastball velocity than Suarez does. But Suarez has so much movement that he doesn't get a ton of hard contact. And he played on a team with the Phillies last year whose defense was ranked 17th, below average. This year, the Cubs had a number 2 defense in all of baseball. Put him behind a guy who gets weak contact all the time, or put him in front of a team that plays that great a defense with all that weak contact, Ranger could be a Cy Young candidate for the Cubs. And I that excites me. But I think Amai could too. But let's talk about King and Gallen real quick. Michael King is a solid guy. And like I said, I think we can get high upside possibility here. I just don't know that I trust it. This year he had a 3.44 ERA. His FIP, though, was 4.42. The highest it's been in a while, though. But this is only the second year that he was a full-time starter. You know what I mean? Like I said, I get that there's high upside here. But he's only gone over 100 innings twice in his career. Ever. And this guy is 30. He'll turn 31 May 25th. So for most of the year, he's going to be 31. And he's only had 2 years above 100 innings. And only 1 year above 104. That's a bit scary to me. And I think it's more of a risk than people want to acknowledge. Is it worth taking? Maybe. The price is right for that, and I get that. I just would rather sign a guy for more and feel a little more confident. Zach Gallen had his worst year of his career. 4.83 ERA, a 4.5 FIP, definitely the highest. And that, pause for concern, he's 30. He turns 31 in August. So he'll be 30 for the majority of the year, 2/3 of it. Gallen, I think, is a good pitcher. He's a better pitcher than he pitched last year. And his history says that. He had 192 innings. He's done that one other time. He had 184 another time. In 24, he had 148. Like this guy, the durability's there. I like the durability. I like the history of him. I think anybody would be crazy not to have pause for his last season for 25. And so I almost wonder if he signs a deal that has an opt-out, that if he pitches really well after 26, maybe he can re-enter the free agency. Because I'm telling you, he was probably in line for better than $20 million a year before this last season. So he's young enough. It would make sense to want to go back and gamble on himself and have that opt-out year. But to have that opt-out year, I would guess that you maybe sign for maybe even a little less than the projections. I don't know. I like the guy, but we have so many other guys who are similar to this in profile. I don't know that it makes sense. We need to sign a guy who has the capability of being a top 2 guy. That's what we need. That's what the Cubs need. They already have all those really good pieces, or good to solid pieces. They need an upper level starting pitcher who could come in and be that stop guy that we all want Shota to be. I just don't think Shota's that guy. So I'm going to talk about Amai next. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to talk about Suarez next. I'll talk about Amai last, and then we'll talk about two other Japanese pitchers who we'll talk about those guys first, and then we'll talk about Amai. Ranger Suarez. This guy last year had a 3.20 ERA. A really good year. A FIP of 3.21. Pitched in a hitter's park. Is a ground ball pitcher. The ball flies out of Philly sometimes. So the ground ball rate was one of the low. It's actually the lowest of his career at 46.8. So you would expect that to bounce back and go a little higher. He is going to be. He doesn't turn 31 until August 26th. So for the majority of this season, in 26, he'll be 30. The ground balls profile better long term than the fly ball pitchers, too. Innings wise, he threw 157 in a third, his highest rate of his career. But he's been over 100 every year since 21. So he doesn't take the ball every 5 days all season, but he has 29, 22, 27, 26 starts in the last 4 years. He's going to take the ball 25 times a year, at least. And I love that. Like I said, I think putting this guy with the weak contact that he gets, and he still strikes out for a guy who only throws the ball at an average about 92 miles an hour for a fastball / sinker. He strikes out 23.2% last year. The last 2 years, it was 23.2%. And his walk rate was the lowest of his career at 5.8%. If we can have a walk rate around 7, along with that K percentage, that's amazing to me. That's awesome. His soft contact rate, 18.9, really good. He had a hard hit rate of 29.8, but his barrel rate was 5.5%. That's pretty darn good, folks. He is a hard guy to barrel up. Pitching at Wrigley, especially if the wind continues to blow in, is only going to help this guy. I would say he's Shota-like, but ground ball wise. You know what I mean? Just he's going to, when he's right, you're not going to square him up well. And he's right a whole lot more in the majors than what Shota had been and has been. Not trying to slam Shota here, folks. That's not my intent. I'm actually, the more I've thought about all that, the more I like that Shota's back, the more I think that Shota will be in between what he was in 24 and what he was in 25. And that's what we like. That'll be great. I love that for the price that he's going to be and all that. I think that'll be great. I think he'll do exactly what he needs to do as the 3-4 guy in the Cubs starting staff. Ranger Suarez, I think, can be that 1 or 2. Probably 2. But I really think he can be. But Amai can be the 1. Shota Imanaga, when he came over from Japan. Sorry, I'm waiting for stats to load here. His ERA never got below 2. The best ERA in Japan he had was 2.26. The best ERA he's had for the Cubs was 2.91. His FIP in the 2.26 year was 2.82. Shota, don't get me wrong, Shota has been great and was great in Japan. But he wasn't what Yamamoto was. He wasn't what Amai was. And he's also older. So Shota is 32 years old. He will turn 33 at the end of, beginning of September 1st. So for the most of the year, he's going to be 32, all that. You know what I mean? But he's definitely older. Yamamoto, I think, well, Yamamoto had a better career than Amai, but he absolutely killed it with ERA in the ones for quite a few years. 23, 22, 21. In 20, it was actually 2.2. And 19, 1.95. 18 was 2.89. So he always had a ERA under 3 in Japan and is 27 right now. Amai, geesh, sorry guys, he's 27 now, getting ready to come over. He will be 28 for the majority of 26. He turns 28 May 9th, right between my daughter's birthdays. His ERA this past year was 1.92. Only year that it was sub 2, but it's only gotten better every year since 2020. In 21, it was 3.30. 22 was 2.41. 23 was 2.3. 24 was a slight worse at 2.34. And 25 was 1.92. I'm not saying we're going to get Yamamoto, but I am saying that we would get a guy like, or that is capable of being an ace. I think that his fastball velocity is around 95. I think this guy, it's a gamble. I'm not disputing that. But I think he profiles into an ace. And I think that he will do that quickly. Will there be a bit of a learning curve? Absolutely. But having a guy like Shota on the roster is only going to help. Having a guy like Seiya possibly, because I still think there's a possibility. We trade him to make a little room, but I digress. I'm not going to get into that right now, too much right now. I think that this is who we ultimately should get, but my second preference would be Ranger Suarez. If we're signing a guy free agent wise, this makes the most sense to me. I think it's time with all the very little money that is guaranteed after this year. The only guy, and I mean only guy, only two guys now because Phil Maton was signed, or Maton. There's only two guys with a guaranteed contract for 2027. Dansby Swanson and Phil Maton. That's it. There's lots of other guys who are under club control, but they have to be tendered contracts, like PCA, Matt Shaw, Miguel Amaya, like lots of young players still. Daniel Palencia. But only two guys with a literal guaranteed contract. It's time to put a third one. Amai, Suarez, either one. My preference would be Amai. That's my preference. I think that I even like this over the Sandy Alcantara trade because then we get to keep Casey and Ballesteros or trade him for something else. You know what I mean? I just think that this makes a ton of sense. And the Cubs are linked all over to him. His weak contact in Japan, he had an 18.7 soft contact percent, only a 21.6% hard hit rate. I don't know if the barrel rate is on here from Japan or not. Doesn't appear so. And I mean, I get it. It's a lot of information to have. Yeah, I don't see the barrel rate. Sorry, guys. But if I find it later, I'll tell you. I just think this is a great move, and I'm hopeful that they do it. It's what I think that is best for the team. I think it makes us a much better team. It gives us the high-profile pitchers. Justin Steele will too. And if Cade Horton continues to develop like he did throughout last year, the rotation is set. And it was shown last year that it's going to be so much easier to not that it's easy. I'm not trying to say that. But it is and was a whole lot easier to try and trade for a bat if we need that later on in the middle of the season than it was for frontline starter pitching. because people were asking for everything under the sun for that. And it made no sense. Maybe they're still doing that. So maybe this makes more sense now because of that, even too. Much better option. We'd have him for a lot longer 6, 7 years. It's a gamble. It's always a gamble, especially with pitching when you pay him that for that long. But I think it's a gamble we're taking for a guy who's 27. Will be 28 for most of the season. Makes sense to me. Let's do it. Go Cubs. I will be on this week, even if it's just me jumping on real quick to talk about any big news that might happen for the winter meetings. I'm excited for the winter meetings. Last couple of years, there's been noise there. So hopefully we can get some noise this year and have something really cool happen. So go Cubs, boys and girls.